Welcome to Downloaded. This is the show where we gather the most opinionated voices in the tech field today and focus all that energy and all the stories impacting our tech world right here. I'm your host, Jim Louderback. Joining me today, super excited to have Janko Roettgers here from GigaOM, senior writer, also the host of Cord Cutters, really cool show about cutting the cord. Nobody cuts the cord, come on. Yeah.
Nobody at all.
Nobody cuts the cord. We'll be talking a little bit about some of those issues. And also Rebecca Jeschke, who's Media Relations Director, Digital Rights Analyst for EFF. Also former coworker. It's great to see you again. I'm so glad you're here because you were here before and I wasn't here, so it's great. We actually have a bunch of really interesting, EFF style stories that we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to get to this. First, we're going to talk about Facebook. I think this is a really interesting story about a bug that this researcher found. Facebook wouldn't even acknowledge it. Facebook, they're going to give you $500 or up if you find a bug, and they fixed it. And this guy was like, "You're not paying attention to me." So he hacked Zuckerberg's wall. Rebecca, should they actually pay this guy, or is he doing something wrong here?
Well, they should pay him. I mean, clearly, on the PR level, they should pay him.
Yeah, on PR level alone, right?
Right. I mean, I have to admit, I have some sympathy for Facebook here. As they get all this email, and their defense was his English wasn't great. Mm-hmm. They had trouble understanding it. They get a lot of people who think they found bugs and haven't, and it had taken them a while. So I do have some sympathy on that. I mean, it wasn't really necessarily the most ethical road to take to hack Zuckerberg's page in order to make your point. And I could see why Facebook doesn't want to encourage that. On the other hand, this guy found a real bug, a real thing.
Right, it was a real bug because, look, his wall is private. I mean, you're not allowed to do that. Janko, what's your take on this? Is this just hubris on Facebook's part? Or is this like, we're Facebook, we don't care?
I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think to your point, they don't want to encourage everybody now to hack Zuckerberg's homepage. That would be kind of a bad outcome of this whole thing. If you hack Zuckerberg's homepage, you get $500. That sounds like a great thing to try, right? So they didn't want to have this outcome. But on the other hand, now they look pretty bad. And I think there's also a point to be made that Facebook has always said we're like the hacker company. When they IPO, when they announced their public offering, Zuckerberg went out and wrote this whole thing, this manifesto, the hacker way, and it has all these things in it where it says, you should be bold, you should be allowed to make mistakes, you should prove your point. And that's kind of what this guy did, right? So he's following the hacker way.
Yeah,
and Facebook says, actually we didn't mean this.
Yeah, well, companies change. When you're a little startup, it's easy to say you're a hacker company. When you're a multi-billion-dollar public company, it's hard to still say, yes, we should be hackers. How do you think Facebook gets around this? Any ideas on what they do in the future to sort of encourage people to keep on sending stuff to them, but don't hack us?
I think it's an easy, if expensive solution, which is spending a lot of time on their email.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a customer service solution.
Hire people who know how to read other languages?
And who will very carefully take everything seriously. And it means that they might, 95% of the time they might not be real bugs, but it stops the PR problem.
Okay, well, how many emails do you guys get at EFF that you're like, oh my gosh, it just goes in the bit bucket?
We try to answer as many people as we can, but it's really hard.
It's tough, right?
It's really hard. I mean, you must have it too. I mean, the email.
There are a lot of wackos out there.
Yep, and lots of them email.
Yeah, I mean, you must see the same thing at GigaOM. I mean, you guys write stories. There's a lot of some opinion there every now and then.
A lot of interesting opinions occasionally. Yeah.
And people come back to you.
I think to this point of customer service, what this guy did on his blog was he published the whole email exchange, right? And so the responses were like a bad customer service rep response. It's like, this doesn't actually work for me. I was waiting for them to say, why don't you unplug your router and put it back in, turn it back on. Maybe this will solve the problem. But so yeah, if they invest a little bit more in that space and maybe translated some of the documents, that might be a good first step.
Yeah, so other stuff going on with Facebook. Zuckerberg, and this is in the New York Times, along with others, he wants to make the internet available to everybody around the world and try to increase access in places where people can't get the internet. I think it's a really good idea, but the cynical side of me says it's just a naked ploy to get more viewers. What do you think, Janko?
I think there's both sides to it. And overall, this goal, I think, is really good. And some people argue the principle of this goal, and they say, oh, why do people need the internet in developing countries? They need water, they need malaria pills and whatnot. They need all that stuff too, but obviously they need also something that lifts them beyond that basic need of poverty, right? And so the internet could be a good
Well, Rebecca, is the internet a basic need that we now need to make sure that everybody in the world has access to?
It's clearly not as basic as water and food, but it's extraordinarily important. I mean, how can we say that, that only people who have, communities that have reached a certain level get access to all this knowledge and all this information and all this communication? I mean, I think it would be great if everybody everybody had access to the internet. I mean, without a doubt, it is a little self-serving on Facebook's part. But on the other hand, this is what they know.
Right.
They're sort of creating philanthropy around what they know, and that makes sense.
Well, I read another study this week that said that, I guess 6 or 7 years ago, 79 to 80% of the US households were connected to the internet, and it really hasn't changed in 6 years.
Wow.
So I wonder if Zuckerberg, instead of going out to other parts of the world that aren't connected, should just start at home.
It might be even harder at home.
Yeah.
If you have to fight the ISPs here, that might be much harder than going into a country where there's no wiggle room.
Well, I know a bunch of the quotes, and it wasn't really a firm study, so you can't really say, but a lot of the people are just, it's cost. I mean, the internet is still expensive in the US. It could be cheaper, right, Rebecca?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm actually horrified every month when I pay the bill.
Yeah.
I mean, I really feel like I should be getting better internet access for less. And, you know, there ought to be, you know, more competition in the market for me to be able to have more choices and to be able to have better service.
Well, the government has tried to build stuff out, and you said you're on your way to Vermont in a couple months. When you're up there, check out VTEL, the company VTEL. They got a grant from the government in '98 to put fiber through a swath of Vermont. So there are little farms in the middle of nowhere in Vermont that have more internet access than even guys in Kansas City with Google Fiber. So there's interesting stuff happening. Yeah. It's just we're still just not there yet. As you guys see on this Facebook story as well, you know, Bill Gates kind of got involved and was sort of needling Zuckerberg, saying, well, you know, that's great, but what happens when they need their malaria pills? Is he right?
You know, yes and no. I mean, I don't want to criticize anything of what Bill Gates is doing because I think he's doing a great job. I think he's doing a radical job, like in you know doing really radical solutions to big problems. But that doesn't mean that no other kinds of philanthropy are important.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, when I think of the charities that I give to every year, I give through a range of people doing different things, and I think that's a good thing that people are working on different problems.
Yeah, Janko, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's these both models, I guess. It's like entrepreneurialism and pure philanthropy. And you can also go to the pure philanthropy side and find a lot of flaws in that as well. And I think a couple of years back, somebody looked at like some of the money that actually Gates Foundation is investing, and that some of those investments are actually pretty bad for the people in these countries as well. So if you want to really like poke your stick at it, you can find bad stuff on that side as well. One thing that I found was a little overlooked. So this whole proposal was not very rich in details, right? They said we want to be encourage like new models to bring internet there through mobile devices, and then some stuff that came up in an article in the New York Times was, oh, how about these things where people get free Facebook access with their mobile phone plan? I was like, well, that's not actually the internet if you just get Facebook, right?
That's
true.
So
if you don't do if you don't incorporate net neutrality in that, you don't say you should get the whole internet and not just like Facebook and your Facebook updates, because that. Then again, maybe Microsoft or maybe Bill Gates is actually right. They don't need just Facebook status updates. Yeah. They need a little bit more.
Access to everything, right?
That's right.
I mean, it should all be there. Another company that is spending a little bit of time thinking about how we get internet access to parts of the world that aren't connected is Google. Their Loon project, again, was in the news. Loon, by the way, this is really interesting. They're balloons that float over, I guess, places that aren't served by the internet, and internet signals bounce up and down, and I guess the balloons end up going somewhere and they get recycled. I don't know. It's just, I think this is a wacky thing. What do you think? First of all, is this Loon project make any sense to you, Rebecca?
No, you know, but it wouldn't necessarily, right? I mean, I think one of the really fun things about companies who have a lot of money and are willing to use it are these really interesting, you know, out-of-the-box ideas, whether it's, you know, Google having self-driving cars, you know, or whatever. So, I mean, I don't actually, you know, discourage cool stuff like this, but it is a little out there.
It's, you know, and it's funny because everybody, it's this new idea. I remember going to, you guys remember the demo trade show, right? I remember going to a demo, I think it was in the 90s, when somebody came up with a balloon internet access thing for the United States when we were still trying to wire up the US. And they're like, we're gonna let all these balloons up on the East Coast and they're gonna float across the West Coast and they're gonna fall into the ocean. Or maybe it was the other way. I think it was the other way around. Whichever way the prevailing winds go.
Eventually they fall in the ocean.
Yeah, it didn't happen. We ended up wiring it up. Janko, do you think this is what the third world really needs, this sort of internet access? Or is it just, look, everyone's gonna have cell phones, we'll just wire it up with wireless phones?
Well, I think both might be, and cell phones don't work everywhere, and if you want to build out cell phone wireless infrastructure, you have a bunch of problems as well. It's expensive, and then you have these carriers that might have other interests that don't want to actually give you the full internet. So, you know, maybe it does sound crazy. It is called Loon. It has to be kind of crazy, right? But maybe it's going to work, so why not just try it?
Well, and remember, was 10 or 15 years ago, and we thought LEOs, low Earth orbit satellites, were going to do this, right? We're going to have all these, oh God, I can't remember, it's Telstar. Remember the names of any of those low Earth orbit satellites? They were huge when, back in like the late 90s. They never worked. And so I guess satellites don't work, so let's move it down to the atmosphere.
Eventually it's going to come really, really close. It's going to be over your head.
It's going to be birds. They're going to outfit birds with internet hubs. Well, it's interesting, though, they're actually going to test it. If you live in Madeira, Chowchilla, Mariposa, Merced, or Turlock, those are all in California, you can actually test it. Put one of these antennas in your house, and the balloons will be going overhead, and you're going to get great internet access. Would you test it?
If my internet at home really sucked and I needed something else, then I would test anything, I think.
Yeah.
So why not?
And then maybe this is a third way, right? You're talking about we need more competition in the internet access market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my parents live in a really remote area on the coast, and they have to get satellite internet, and it is awful.
Yeah, satellite internet doesn't work all that well.
Right. And I mean, they would take whatever they could get to actually be able to stream video. They would try anything. Interesting.
And another thing, by the way, here, I think Bill Gates was critical of this one as well. Again, saying they don't need balloons, they need malaria pills.
It honestly seems funny to me that he would. I mean, I think that he could stay above the fray.
You would think. But Bill Gates has never been one to stay above the fray. Come on. I think another interesting Google story that was going on this week is about the NFL. Now, this is interesting. Sunday Ticket. So Sunday Ticket is this package that DirecTV has had for a long time. And I know because I'm a customer. I spent a lot of money on it. But with Sunday Ticket, you get access to football games, but not the local ones. So I live in San Francisco, I wouldn't get 49ers or Oakland Raiders, but I get every other game and I can watch it, which is a Patriots fan living in San Francisco is something that I like and I'm willing to pay for. I actually pay for DirecTV because of it. They are now going around and in 2014, apparently the Sunday Ticket expires, and they're starting to go around and talking to some of the internet folks about maybe they pick it up. They're going to Google. And imagine Google spending billions to put football games on YouTube. Rebecca, is this a negotiating ploy, or does it sound like something could actually happen?
I mean, Google has the money to make something happen whenever it wants to.
They do.
And, as you know, people will make spending, purchasing, and television watching decisions around how they can get their football.
They do. I do.
That's
I'm a
right.
perfect example.
Exactly.
Right here.
And so, I mean, if Google decides it really wants to get into television, it's a smart start.
It could do it. Yeah, I've said to the YouTube guys in the past, I'm like, you guys are going to really be real when you've got football games.
Right.
I didn't think it would happen this quickly. Janko, is there a chance in hell of this happening from your perspective?
Well, all of these reports right now are kind of just early conversations, right? And they're talking all the time, of course, so it's kind of a little bit overblown. And there might be also some other story to it, because right now there's all these negotiations between traditional cable companies and traditional broadcasters about stuff. So it might make sense to throw out some of these other things and say, you know what, instead we could also go with Google, or we could go with those guys. It obviously brings up the price a little bit if you want to go back to DirecTV.
Yeah, I think they're just using it as a way to get more money out of DirecTV. I can't see DirecTV dropping this because in the end, so many people will just drop DirecTV, I believe, if they don't have Sunday Ticket and go to wherever it is. I actually, in our house, I don't need DirecTV anymore except for sports. So I'd like, go Google, this would be great. Go, go, go. Janko, you cover this in cord cutters, and you cover the way that, I don't think it's ever going to be an a la carte world, but if this happens, if sports really do go in this direction where you can get them that way, is that really the beginning of the end or the end of the end?
The end of the end, which is then the beginning of the beginning or something?
I don't know, whatever.
I don't know. I mean, sports is definitely a big deal, and I talk about cord cutting a lot, and people come to me and write emails and want to know advice about this. And the last question is always, and how do I get my sports? And my answer is, well, actually, you have to go to your sports bar or something like that, because there is no real solution online unless you want to spend a lot of money on semi-legal, semi-illegal solutions, which we're not going to talk about here.
Yeah,
but sports could be like the holy grail for some of these new offerings. I think even if they don't get these sports deals, some other companies are going to come out with some stuff that's going to look a little bit more like cable. It's not going to be a la carte. You're going to pay for bundles. So Intel has said they're going to do it. Sony supposedly is working on something. There were some reports recently.
Apple today, right?
Yeah, Apple
sort of
might have a little bit of a different model, but everybody's kind of looking at that. And I think the cable companies are going to look at that too, because right now Comcast is in certain markets, but not in others. Wouldn't it be great if you could subscribe to Comcast if you don't live in a Comcast area?
No, it would be great if I didn't have to subscribe to Comcast ever. No,
but
that's not
I tell
true.
you what, it
It's
would be
fine.
great because then you have different cable companies
Right,
competing.
there's a lot of
Right.
competition. Actually, the head of Time Warner Cable has said, I don't even want to be in the TV business, right? And you look at what he's doing with CBS and with other people, I mean...
Yeah, I think that's why he said it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Right.
I don't need you guys
Negotiating
all that much.
Yeah.
It could also just drop all of it.
I think, and if our cable companies end up becoming just internet access companies, I think that's even worse for competition, Rebecca, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want way more competition for internet access, absolutely. And when it comes to TV, what I really want, because I'm not going to be a cord cutter, because I just want convenience.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to pay extra for convenience, and I don't think I'm the only person.
I agree with you on that too. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I keep up with DirecTV and Sunday Ticket. I could, and I thought about this, although it's not probably entirely legal, I could get my dad to subscribe to Aereo, and I could use his Aereo, and I could watch the games, and that would be fine. But it would be a pain.
And that's what I don't want. I mean, I have a TiVo. I want to sit down, TV is my relaxing time. I want to sit down and have it all queued up there as a to-do list to let me watch, and I'll pay extra for that. However, I mean, I think that the cable companies are asking too much of me. I'm paying too much. Pretty soon, they're going to push me out.
Do you subscribe to Netflix?
I do.
Because our next story on Netflix about getting the Weinstein Company movies, pretty interesting. Netflix just keeps on adding more and more to its stable. Is this, I mean, they're taking these away from, I guess, Showtime now. Is this they sort of building themselves into, like, you need Netflix and a couple little things and that's it? Or is it just one of many services?
That would be a great solution for me. I think it makes sense to actually have a lot of service because people want different things from their entertainment. We should have a lot of solutions. Convenience for me is really big. I don't want to have to search around for the thing that I want. The more things that end up in Netflix streaming that I can watch at my own time and I know they're there, the better off for me because that's something I already subscribe to.
Janko, what's your take on this Netflix Weinstein thing? Is it, I mean, coming on the backs of DreamWorks and a bunch of others, they're really starting to lock a lot of stuff up, right?
I mean, they have to in a way because these deals are so far in the future. They get these movies, but not until 2016. So they have to buy these rights now because they want to still matter in 2016. But Netflix has long time said that they really want to be more like HBO. Or I think Reed Hastings, the CEO, has said, we want to be like HBO before HBO is like us.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to measure when that happens, but they're definitely on the way. They produce their original TV shows now, and this deal kind of tells viewers now, we do a lot of TV, but we haven't forgot about you movie buffs as well. We're going to get this stuff too.
Although, as you say, this stuff doesn't really take effect until 2016, 2017. There are movies that start after 2015. It's a long time in the future. Really interesting that, Netflix has that long-term view, but it's not going to change anything today, right?
No, it's not going to change anything today, but I think in the meantime you get a lot of other stuff from Netflix, and especially the original content, the original shows, House of Cards and Orange is the New Black.
The thing that I thought was interesting though is that so far in the future, but their stock went up like 20% from this deal. This is not a short-term thing. I don't know. I see this. I see the stuff going on with the NFL, what happens or not, and some of the other things we were talking about, Chromecast earlier, as being the beginning of this sort of just a broad new world of being able to access content on lots of different devices, which is why I thought it was really weird that Al Jazeera, when they launched this week, and they took over Current, basically, they launched on all of Current's old households except AT&T, who dropped them like a hot potato, but they cut off all of their internet access. Rebecca, that was weird. What'd they do that for?
I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think that the more content that you get out there, particularly with Al Jazeera, which some people have a brand issue with Al Jazeera. You want to be able, when you're a new network, you want to be able to show people what you're doing, show people how good or bad your content is, to have them to advocate to get it on your, cable carriage is so important. You and I know about that. We went through that a long time ago.
Right. Your cable operator, tell them to put check TV on. But the other thing that happened though when we were there is the deals that we did with the cable operator said that we were only allowed to put, I think it was 10% of our content up on internet distribution, and it was. We had so much great stuff we did. You remember, we could only put a little bit of it up on the net. You can see how the guys at Al Jazeera, right, going into whether Time Warner or Comcast, or I don't think Time Warner's carrying them, Comcast or Cox, and saying, well, we're going to take down Current that you actually signed a deal for, and we're going to put on Al Jazeera. And they're like, wait, that's not what we signed up for. oh yeah, you better take all that crap off the internet if you really want to do it. I mean, do you think that happened?
It's hard to know. Once
know.
again,
I'll bet it did.
Right, but truly anything can happen in those in those negotiations. I mean, I think it was wrong for the cable companies. If the cable companies insisted on it, it was wrong because they need to be able to say, this is the kind of news content that we're carrying. And they need to hear from people about whether they want it or not. I think I've been really impressed with Al Jazeera so far, and I think that it would help their brand to have more people to see what kind of news they do. And
to your point, I can see, okay, maybe you want to take the streaming channel down, like make the Roku stuff go away, which I really liked during the Arab Spring. I watched it a lot. Mm-hmm. But they geo-blocked all the YouTube clips as well, which are kind of more promotional anyway.
Absolutely.
Out of the US, Janko, that seems like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Well, I think it was really forced by the cable companies. Yeah. And they've been doing a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I've been actually kind of using it to catch up on international news, especially on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You subscribe to the channel, and they had basically all the little newscasts. Every hour they were uploading videos. I think the total number of videos from Al Jazeera English, which is not the same as the new cable channels, Al Jazeera America, was like 42,000 or 43,000. That's a lot of content. But now all of this stuff is blocked. And I think the people at Al Jazeera are kind of just like doing it because they have to, but a lot of the talent there, a lot of the people that are actually working on these shows are like really sweating and are really seeing people respond badly to it, and they're trying to figure out what can we do instead. And some people have hinted, and I wrote about that on Giga, some people have hinted at we might do something else for all of you guys who can't watch us online, but it's going to be different. And oh no, it's not going to be Al Jazeera America because we don't want to get in trouble. So we're going to have something for you guys. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to come out of that.
Yeah, all these things just, and then our last story in this space, I think are all indicative of just such a changing environment. I mean, you remember, 15 years ago, I know, Rebecca, you did, because when we were at Tech TV, where the internet started changing newspapers and magazines. And remember how much change there was and how many different things tried, and people pulled their content off and they put it back on. It kind of, does it feel the same way to you, Rebecca, as it did then?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of that before, but I think that's a really good parallel. I mean, when I worked for television stations too that kept just trying to figure out what was the best way to do it. And I think you're right. I think it's another reset where people are throwing a bunch of things at the wall and trying to figure out how they're going to go forward.
The trouble with that is newspapers still haven't figured it out. So 15 years later, they're still working on it. So if it's going to take TV that long, then I don't know how much is going to be left of it.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to someone at Discovery this week who owns us, and we're talking about that time. And I said, hey, and I was in '96. I was in a magazine called PC Week, and we had our biggest, fattest issues ever in '97. Right? We were huge, and then by 2000, 2001, that business was done basically, in 4 or 5 years. And I don't think it's going to be as quick here because the long contracts and the fact that the guy that I was talking to made a really good point. He said, look, that was just magazines talking directly to consumers and through distribution. We've got bundles of channels and then bundles on cable and then bundles on this. And there's like so many things that need to unwind for it to happen that it may take a lot longer. I mean, Janko, what do you think? Is this going to happen as quickly as it did with magazines and newspapers, or is it going to be drawn out, or maybe it won't ever happen?
No, I think it will take a little longer. And the question is, how do you measure it? When is the big point there? And
right.
By some accounts, you could say you have, I don't know how many, 36 million people subscribe to Netflix now. Stuff is already happening. Yeah. They're bigger than some of the biggest subscription networks out there. So stuff is already happening. But then the other 90% of TV households still subscribe to cable. And cord cutting is real. People finally realizing it, but it's on a very small scale so far.
Well, cord cutting, cord shaver, cord never, all that stuff there's something
and people
there.
Who just don't watch, who subscribe but just don't watch. Right,
exactly. So our last story in this sort of general category, one of the big YouTube multi-channel networks called Maker, who, if we do move to a complete internet-delivered world, stands to be one of the big winners, buys another startup called Blip that was off YouTube but really tried to build an off-YouTube video thing. Janko, why do you think this happened?
Well, I think Blip has been trying to figure out for a long time what they wanted to be. So initially they started as Blip TV, and at some point they said, oh, we're not TV anymore, we're online video. Right. And then they went back and said, actually, we're kind of like TV, but online. And so they were going back and forth a long time and not mattering all as much anymore as stuff is gravitating towards YouTube. But now you have a lot of talent on YouTube, and they have billions of views there, and they're figuring out, well, actually, the monetization side of it isn't working as well for us. So maybe if we take some of this content and we get our own ad deals and we have it on a separate site and maybe have a separate vertical, that will be better for us. And that's Maker Studios. It's in that position, right, where they have a lot of subscribers, a lot of views, 4 billion views or something like that a month on YouTube.
I know, a huge number of views.
But on the money side, it's not looking as good, and they're trying to figure out other options. And so they're trying to find new outlets. Instead of rebuilding everything from scratch, they were like, oh, there's this thing called Blip. They have a good player. They have a good technology. They're probably fairly cheap at this point. Let's give it a shot.
What do you how do you think this compares to The Collective, a similar network, not as big, but buying MetaCafe?
It's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those platforms that hasn't done so well, hasn't fared so well, and you're trying to figure out what else could we do with it. We can use the technical infrastructure. Those names might go away, right? Blip might go away because people don't care that much about the name anymore. But yeah, it's kind of like that, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a tough question if they're going to be successful off YouTube, because people really at this point associate online video with YouTube to a large degree.
Yeah,
and if you want to watch something, you just go on YouTube and you search for it, right? And
Rebecca, what's your assessment of the deal?
Well, it's it's an interesting issue because I admit that I'm all about convenience when I'm looking for something, but that creates these little sub internets like YouTube and Facebook, where they set the rules, and it's their rules or the highway, and there's all sorts of battles about, what's okay, what's okay on YouTube and what isn't, what is a terms of use violation and what's not. So competition is really good because you go somewhere where there's you like the terms of use better, but then you're back to, I need to search different platforms for different things that I want. Yeah. We're at an interesting point. We need to, it's going to shake out one way or the other. I mean, convenience is great, but then you do get locked into this system, which may not work exactly right for you.
So the question I have on this whole deal is, what does Ray William Johnson think?
Yeah,
so Ray William Johnson was part of Maker, left Maker because they wanted to own more of his content, and he did, one of the top YouTube stars. Went to Blip to do a development deal, and now he's back.
He didn't just leave. There was a big fuss about it, and back and forth. Yeah. And now it's going to be awkward conversations.
It's awkward. It's like, oh yeah, that place you left, we were saved you. We're back. Yeah. It's really, really interesting. I think there's some issues with moving audiences around, and I think it's going to be tough. I mean, have we seen, and I'll throw that out to both you guys, have we seen an example of where someone has successfully been able to move audiences from one extremely social platform to another really successfully? I can't think of one.
MySpace to Facebook?
Yeah, but somebody tried to move their own audience. Not the audience went on their own accord.
Right.
Like, I have my audience over here on YouTube, and I want to move them over to this other place.
I see.
I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's
I
really
can think
tough.
of something.
So, interesting, this thing's closing in September. Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot more that we're going to talk about there. Let's shift gears away from talking about the future of video, and I want to talk a little bit about NSA and a lot of this just crazy stuff going on with tracking all of our emails and what's going on the internet. And it's great, Rebecca, here from the FF, because you guys just got a ton of stuff yesterday that advanced this even further. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, well, yesterday we finally got the results of a long-running Freedom of Information Act request that we made. We wanted to get some of these orders from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which is the one place that's supposed to be tracking what the NSA is doing. The NSA keeps saying, oh, we have this court supervision, and we've been briefing Congress.
It's great oversight, right?
Right, and and we have all these members of Congress saying, we didn't actually know. So that was one part of the oversight that clearly didn't work. And what we found out yesterday was that this court, this Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court called the FISC Court, has been complaining that they're being lied to as well. So this was, it talked about how many, that it was concerned with the orders that it got from the NSA, that it was asked to sign off on, that it was just not true, basically. I mean, I don't know how many different ways to say lie. Yeah. It's hard to come down. Right, exactly. I mean, it's just like lie. And that and the NSA has been saying, well, we made some changes after that. But we also have been hearing that for a while.
Oh my God, this thing is just going out of control. I mean, Janko, where's the outrage on this?
That's a good question. I think.
Why don't we all?
I have a lot of opinions about this. So.
Right, well, I'll take yours, and I want to go on and find out.
Like, when does it matter to the average person on the street? That's a good question, and I'm still kind of wondering, like, what is that point going to be? People maybe don't even care that much that somebody may read my email, but I let everybody in my household read my email too. I think maybe at some point when it has like other legal ramifications. And we've seen in the past there was some stuff where, you know, some of that intelligence has been then maybe sent to the Drug Enforcement Agency, and they're told, you know, you can use it in your court cases, but maybe just falsify like the train of evidence. If some of those cases then get reversed, and you know, drug dealer cases get thrown out because actually the evidence wasn't admissible, that could get interesting, I think.
Yeah, what's your take, Rebecca?
Well, you know, a lot of people are working on that angle on it. A lot of people are investigating that angle, which I think is great. You know, we're an advocacy organization, EFF, and we, you know, spend a lot of time working on stuff. And I just want to talk about SOPA PIPA for a little bit, because that was, you know, a year and a half, a little longer than that now. It was a while ago.
Do you want to remind people what SOPA PIPA were, for those of us with short memories?
Yeah, these were really, really bad bills that were working their way through Congress in the guise of, you know, protecting intellectual property rights and enforcement, would create bottlenecks for the internet, easy ways for people to just knock whole different kinds of content just right off the internet.
Boom, you're gone.
And so, you know, those bills started with different names, you know, and evolved, and it took them several years. But what we were part of at EFF was several years of creating coalitions and groups and raising awareness that all culminated after years and years of work in the blackout.
Right.
So, you know, and then and after the blackout, every time something bad happened on the internet, people started calling and said, "Where's the blackout?"
Remember, the blackout was when, just to be clear for people who don't remember, the blackout was when a bunch of websites blacked themselves out to protest.
Right. And you know, those big movements are the culmination of years and years of people being involved. And so we're in the middle of that right now. We've had hundreds of thousands of people take action on our website to talk to their lawmakers. There, you know, just last month, Congress was really close to passing a bill to defunding the part of the NSA that ran this program, just 2 or 3 votes away.
Wow.
So, you know, and the movement is happening. We're in the middle of it, and it's very easy, sort of later, to be, oh, the tipping point was there.
Right.
But we're in the
but we don't see
yeah,
it.
like
Got
so,
it.
and so it's clearly you hit a
So
you hit a nerve with me.
All right,
but
so
we're in the middle of doing the hard work to get this turned around.
So if you want to get involved and do something to try and turn this around because it does bother you, what should you do?
Well, you know, we've got actually a lot of ways on our website. Hate to just pitch
No,
the
that's
website,
okay. No,
but
please do, because it's an important point.
Yeah, our action center at EFF.org walks you through different ways you can contact your lawmakers. And actually, there's lots of different, you know, demand progress and stuff. We'll have some good tools as well, just to be fair. You know, your lawmakers really need to hear about it. I mean, here in San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi was instrumental in getting this amendment blocked.
Yep.
This amendment that would defund the NSA. It's time to tell Nancy Pelosi how you think if
Nancy,
you're in San Francisco.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, it is. You know, you should check how your lawmaker voted and let them know. One of the many positive things from the SOPA PIPA debate is that lawmakers have realized that the internet counts.
Yes.
People care, and they're willing to make their opinions heard. Phone calls, emails, those all matter. They matter a lot to people who need to keep their constituents happy to keep their jobs.
So do you think it's harder this time around because some of the internet giants are now kind of in a position where, like, actually, we can't really talk about it, we can't get too active in it, we're trying to protect our own interests here, so they can't actually advocate too much openly anyway? Yeah,
it's harder now for a lot of reasons, and that's definitely one of them. Another is, you know, when you get national security in, people understandably have concerns. Yeah. You know, this is different from, you know, protecting Hollywood's, you know, ridiculous money-making models. This is where, you know, it is sort of in everyone's best interest to deliberate on what the best move forward is. I mean, I think most people, after they think about it for a little bit, will decide that the best way forward to everybody isn't collecting everything all the time, no matter what. Right. Unconstitutionally, but, you know, like breaking the law is a bad way forward. But that is one of the battles as well. Is that it's extraordinarily important, and people need to learn a lot about it.
Yeah, Janko, I think that's a really good point. That you look at Microsoft and Google and Yahoo, and they were sort of I won't call them culpable, but they were involved in this in a way that maybe they just don't want it to be advertised over and over again. That wow, we were actually doing this, and you know, in retrospect, maybe we shouldn't. It's a good point. The saddest thing I think that I saw on this is Groklaw shutting down. So the person who runs Groklaw, this great blog about law and technology and what it means, basically shut down because the author said, I just can't live anymore in a world like this. I can't see running my site, and I can't do it successfully this way. Janko, that was a blow, because it's a great site.
I gotta say, I have to take a little bit of a contrarian view.
Okay, go for it.
And gotta say, I thought that was a little overblown, a little bit overly dramatic in a way too, because it's a public blog. Yeah, you have a tip line, you have people contacting you, but even like, especially when you write on these subjects, and if you want to protect your privacy, yes, it's getting harder, and email clients are getting shut down. But there's always been PGP or GPG or like these encryption models. You can use this stuff if you really want to protect yourself. If you want to operate in the public, then operate in the public. And just shutting down and like making your voice not heard doesn't seem like a good response when people's voice need to be heard.
Yeah, Rebecca, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely really sad. And Pamela Jones has always been a very private person.
Yeah,
that's been a big part of how she's run her site is that she wanted to stay out of the spotlight. So I absolutely understand a personal decision to say that I don't feel comfortable going forward. I mean, clearly that's not something that EFF is doing, right? We're still going. We're an advocacy
like
group.
God.
But we're not going to give up. That's to us, that's the wrong answer. But for people to make personal decisions is, I think, legitimate. I mean, one of the concerns is that about this NSA spying is the chilling effect that it has on who contacts who when. And this is an example of how the chilling effect can play out.
Yeah, I mean, her basic message was basically, it's kind of like the internet over. Is the internet over? Is the internet over?
No, the internet's not over. But we do have to keep fighting for it.
Yeah. What do you think, Janko? Is the internet over?
I think you can't say it any better than that.
I think we're reaching a new level of what the internet is. It's almost like and just like I think we're seeing in television, the change that's going through, the internet is going through some changes. I won't say it's going from teenage to adult or adult to old age or whatever it is, but it feels like we're crossing some sort of a threshold. I don't know if you guys buy that or not. It just feels that way.
It's in the teenage age where you get spied on by your parents. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. We'll take that analogy as far as you want to go. Anything else on this just sort of ever expanding NSA story you guys want to share?
One of the things I would say is that any time that the NSA denies something, take a look at the weasel words.
Yeah.
Because we've had a couple of interesting pieces on our site, and you can and they've had some good ones in other newspapers as well that take apart their denials. It's a good exercise in critical thinking.
So they're not really denying anything.
Yeah, the non-denial denial.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got a couple quick stories to round up the day here today. I want to start off with Apple. Apple, we're going to have an event, we're going to release some new phones. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about it, and I guess I'm at fault too, because I can't stop talking about it either. They're going to be coming out with a gold phone, so they say. First of all, you buy the gold phone? People want a gold phone?
That sounds incredibly tacky to me, but yeah, who knows?
Apparently, gold phones are really big in Asia. Or gold phone cases, I don't know.
Yeah, but if you can get the same thing with a case, I don't know.
I don't know.
We
gold.
Have to see.
Hey, look, the iPhone's always been, it's been white or black. Gold, Rebecca?
I might get a gold phone.
You got a nice gold thing right there.
Yeah, exactly. I might get a gold phone.
So you're the market.
Maybe the colors of iOS 7 are less obvious if you have a gold phone around it. I don't know.
I think, look, there's a picture of the gold phone here. It's a dirty mock-up that somebody put together. But
I thought it looked nice.
It looks kind of cool. It's got a bling bling, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, let's go back to the, remember when the iMacs came out, the iFruities? I saw that poster with all the colors.
Right.
It's great. I thought it was great.
I like a little fun in my stuff.
Yeah, a little color, a little fun, why not? Yeah, don't be so serious about your iPhone. Okay. Twitter talking about a new tweets per second record, 143,199 tweets per second. Rebecca, who cares?
Tweets are fun. I love Twitter.
Yeah, I do too, but do we care how many people, look, I just love this graph. It's like, whoop. There was like some Japan castle in the sky. I think it's really interesting that there are that many tweets a second. They usually do about 5,700, which actually doesn't really seem like a lot to me, does it?
What I thought interesting about this story was that when people usually come up with these statistics, it was like, oh, it's the Super Bowl, it's the Video Music Awards, and this one was like a 20-year-old animation movie in Japan, which I think is awesome that that's able to beat everybody else's records.
They probably all use their gold phones to do it too.
Yes.
BlackBerry, more trouble with BlackBerry land. They claim 120,000 apps in their BlackBerry world, but almost half of them, 47,000, made by one company. Rebecca, what do you think about that? Can anybody use that many apps anyway?
No. I tend to stay away from apps too because I've got privacy concerns about them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Overall, but I think customers are really smart, and it's a bad idea to try to put one over on them.
Yeah, they're going to figure it out anyway, right?
Yeah.
If you go in there and search for and a type of app and it's not there, it's like you can have 120,000, but if the app I want isn't there, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this is that this company apparently is run by 2 German guys. So on behalf of all my people, I have to apologize for this.
Okay. Well, so last story, Orb Networks, a long-time company out there, sort of offering a software version of Sling. Qualcomm bought them and shut them down. What do you think the outcome of, what do you think, is there anything going on there? You wrote a story about it. What's your take?
I mean, Orb Networks was one of those companies for a long time that said, internet video is really complicated, we're going to make it slightly more complicated by giving you a great workaround. And it still ended up to be complicated because you had to basically install something on a computer and then you stream it to your TV and have a bunch of different devices. And they never really caught on with this, so it's one of many companies that's been trying to do this. It's interesting that Qualcomm is buying them because it seems like everybody's, like the bigger guys are getting into the game now.
What do you think Qualcomm's going to do with them? I mean, Qualcomm bought those guys. You look at Samsung bought Boxy, right?
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to do?
So Samsung is probably going to be a little bit different than Qualcomm. Qualcomm wants to do home networking and for you to shift stuff around in your home. Yep. What Samsung's going to do with Boxy, who knows? Maybe a new TV UI, maybe something else. But it's definitely interesting that these big companies are now waking up, and all the startups that tried to do stuff 5 years ago, now the big companies are like, wait a minute, maybe we should get into that game too.
Yeah, what do you think, Rebecca? Any there on this purchase and shutdown, or is it?
It's hard for me to know. It's a little outside my area, but I'm definitely pro new gadgets and new ways to watch stuff. I mean, that's what's good for consumers, right? Is having new things that we haven't thought of yet.
Well, hopefully Qualcomm can take that technology and actually do some cool stuff with it. I would like that because we still have problems moving video around our house and around the world because I just need new ways to watch my football. That's all the time we have. Thank you guys very much. You've been watching Downloaded. I want to thank Janko Roettgers from GigaOM for showing up, Rebecca Jeschke from EFF. A lot of stuff going on in your life, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to come over and talk about these issues with us. And if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, anything else, post them down below in the YouTube comments. Talk about all the stories we talked about, whatever you want. And until next time, you're watching Downloaded.